Every month, part of your salary disappears into your pension. You probably know that money is invested, but invested where? It is not sitting in a bank account waiting for you. It is being sent into stock markets, bond markets, and other assets around the world. And here is the surprising part. In one of Britain's biggest pension markets, only around 3% of default fund assets are invested in listed UK shares. So let's follow the money from your payslip, see where it actually ends up, and understand why Britain is now trying to change where some of it goes. For most workers today, the pension being built through work is a defined contribution pension. You and your employer put money in, and the money is invested to build a pot for retirement. Unless you choose something else, you will usually end up in your provider's default fund, and from there the money gets spread across different investments. In the pensions regulator's latest study of large master funds, around 65% of default fund assets were invested in equities. The rest was spread across things like bonds, private markets, and other assets. So most of the money is trying to grow through ownership of companies, while another part is being used to lend money to governments and businesses. And as you get closer to retirement, that balance normally becomes more cautious, less exposure to volatile shares, and more emphasis on protecting the money you have already built up. So far, fairly straightforward. But where those investments are actually located is much more interesting. Most of that money does not stay in Britain. In the regulator's latest data, just around 3% of default fund assets were invested in listed UK shares. The overwhelming majority of their stock market exposure was actually overseas. Now, that is not necessarily bad pension management. Britain is only one part of the global stock market. Investing internationally gives savers exposure to American technology companies, European industrial businesses, Asian manufacturers, and thousands of companies that simply do not exist in the UK market. But when millions of British workers are investing this way, the effect becomes much bigger than one person's pension, because Britain used to invest very differently. In 1990, pension funds owned 31.7% of UK quoted shares. By 2024, that figure was just 1.6%. There have been changes in how the data is measured over that period, but the direction is difficult to miss. Part of the reason is that older defined benefit pension schemes gradually became more conservative as they matured. They reduced their exposure to equities and moved more money towards assets like government bonds. At the same time, newer workplace pensions became increasingly global. And over several decades, British pension money simply stopped being such a major buyer of British companies. That might sound like an obscure change inside the pensions industry, but it potentially matters to the entire UK stock market. If British pension funds are no longer major buyers of British shares, one long-term source of demand becomes weaker, and that can become self-reinforcing. Less British pension money buys UK shares. UK shares perform worse relative to overseas markets. Global funds then have even less reason to allocate money here. Lower valuations can make British companies look cheaper to foreign buyers, while some growing companies may prefer to raise money or list elsewhere. That can leave the UK market smaller again. Now, pensions are not the only reason the British stock market has struggled relative to markets like the US. Economic growth, the types of companies listed here, investor sentiment, and plenty of other factors matter too. But pension flows can add to the problem. Less domestic demand can contribute to weaker relative valuations, which can then make the market less attractive again. And Britain has noticed. The government has been trying to encourage more pension money back into the domestic economy. Under the Mansion House Accord, 17 major pension providers have pledged to put at least 5% of their main default funds into UK private markets by 2030. That does not mean buying more FTSE 100 shares. The focus is on things like British private businesses, infrastructure, and other assets that can directly fund economic growth. But there is an obvious tension here. Your pension exists to fund your retirement. It does not exist to rescue the British stock market or support government economic policy. So any attempt to direct more money towards Britain still has to make sense for the person whose money is actually being invested. Which brings us back to your pension. Open your workplace pension and find the fact sheet for the fund you actually own. Look at 3 things: how much is invested in equities versus bonds, where that money is invested geographically, and how that allocation changes as you approach retirement. You do not need to become a fund manager, but your pension is not just money disappearing from your payslip, it is probably one of the largest investment portfolios you will ever own. And if you have never looked at it, someone else has been making those investment decisions for you.